All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to day 2 of Black Student Success Week. We are 5 years in, half a decade into this movement, this operation here. We thank all of you for joining us. My name is Dr. Abdulmalik Bull, visiting executive here at the California Community College's Chancellor's office. And I have with me my two phenomenal colleagues, Katrina Linden from the Campaign for Community Colleges, as well as Dr. Eric Handy from AMEN, Vice President of AMEN. Yesterday, we discussed the importance and the imperative of the California Community College Bachelor's Degree Program. We heard our why from our students, centered in how we navigate our what and our how. Today, we talk about how and our what, looking at combating the race-conscious admissions ban, levers for increasing Black student success at the state and federal level. We're excited to hear from phenomenal folks that are going to guide us through this conversation. Chief amongst them, at the head of that, we have our Assemblymember, Lori Wilson. A little bit of nuggets about her. I'll give you the clip version, and then we'll drop her bio in the chat because we're pressed for time here. But she's the chair of the Black Caucus. She's the first Black female mayor in Solano County. Amongst other firsts, she was the first freshman legislator to be selected as the Black Caucus chair as well. And she's a proud product of our public higher education system, being a graduate of Sac State. Please, without further ado, welcome to the stage to kick us off today, Assemblymember Lori Wilson.
Hi, good morning. I just want to make sure you can see me. There we go. It is a pleasure to be with all of you today. I have stepped out of Public Safety Committee to make sure that I have an opportunity to spend time with you all and just to celebrate what it means to be in Black Student Success Week in 2024. So as was stated earlier, my name is Assemblymember Lori Wilson. I represent the 11th Assembly District, which includes the entire Solano County, the entirety of Solano County, as well as East Contra Costa County and a little bit of Sacramento County as it hugs the Delta. As was noted in the introduction, I also am proud to serve as chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, along with 11 of my other legislative colleagues who hail from all different parts of California. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today for 2024 Black Student Success Week. It is an honor to be able to represent the Black Caucus in this space and to share our legislative priorities and also what we're doing in this upcoming year to support Black and African American students at our California community colleges. Our caucus has always been dedicated to advancing education equity and ensuring that all students, especially Black and African American students, have access to quality education and opportunities for success. Today, I'm excited to highlight two critical legislative bills that exemplify our commitment to supporting these students in California. The first bill is AB 1929. This is by Assemblymember McKinnon. It aims to expand access to career technical education by creating a competitive grant program to increase enrollment of descendants in STEM-related CTE programs at the high school and college levels. By providing targeted support for underrepresented students in these fields, we are opening doors to high demand careers and fostering innovation and diversity in the workplace. The second bill is by Assemblymember McCarty, AB 3131. This particular bill addresses the financial barriers faced by students from redline communities. It also seeks to provide essential financial aid specifically tailored to support students in underserved areas, ensuring that all students have the resources they need to pursue their educational aspirations, pursuits, and succeed in their chosen path. Through these two legislative initiatives, we are working to enhance access and affordability, support student success programs, and create pathways for Black and African American students to thrive in higher education. Our focus is on building a more inclusive and equitable education system that empowers all students to reach their full potential. We know that we cannot do this without collaboration and essential partnerships. Our caucus will continue to collaborate with education stakeholders, community organizations, and advocacy groups to develop and advance policies that uplift Black and African American students and address systemic inequities in the education system. We recognize the importance of partnerships with community colleges, universities, and local organizations in supporting Black student success. By working together, we can create a more inclusive and equitable educational landscape for all students. And as we come together during the 2024 Black Student Success Week, under the theme, Building a Better Future Together, the urgency is now, we reaffirm our commitment to creating a brighter tomorrow for all students, especially those who have historically faced barriers to success. The California Legislative Black Caucus has worked extremely hard over the last 2 years, well, actually even longer, under the direction of Dr. Weber, on our focus in reparations, which includes an education component. And so you will see not only this year, but continuing bills in this space to ensure Black student success as it relates to our reparations package. We recognize that the only way to restore California to its full glory is to restore Black Californians. We also recognize that the time for action is absolutely now. And I'm confident by working together, we can achieve meaningful progress and ensure that every student in California has the opportunity to excel and contribute to our shared future. In conclusion, the California Legislative Black Caucus is committed to advocating for policies and initiatives that empower Black and African American students to succeed in higher education and beyond. Together, as the theme says, we can build a better future for all Californians because the urgency is now. We are ready to take action. We are ready to take action with all of you to ensure Black students have success. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your day today to provide these opening remarks. I know that it'll be an amazing day for you, an amazing week, as you get to do so much more to ensure the success of the students we care the most about. Thank you again.
Thank you, Assemblymember Lori Wilson. We appreciate you and your advocacy. And I know you got to go down the halls and fight for us some more. So appreciate you again for being unapologetically Black. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
So back in June 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to curtail the use of race in college and university admissions, a tool historically used to address the legacy of racial injustice in higher education and promoting inclusion and greater student diversity. While the impacts of the decision were felt nationwide, many of us quickly came together to provide guidance and support during the time of uncertainty. Today's panel will discuss what exactly the race-conscious admission decision, why it matters, what it means for higher education, and what does it not. One thing for certain that the Supreme Court decision did not ban colleges from doing the hard and vital work of supporting Black students to reach their college goals. It does not stop colleges from rethinking recruitment, retention, and support practices with racial equity at the forefront. And it certainly does not stop state leaders in California from crafting policies that increase racial equity in higher education. Practices and policies California already implements, like holistic admissions review, dual enrollment programming, transfer pathways, and Cal Grant 8 can guide either states and the nation as we think about what is next. Now, join me in welcoming our first panel of experts as we reflect on what is next for California community colleges and our nation. First off, we have, again, we're going to do the truncated bios, and as we mentioned their bios, the bullet points, we'll drop the longer version in the chat. Dr. Nasser Paydar, he's Assistant Secretary of Education for Postsecondary Education. He formerly served as the Purdue University in Indianapolis Chancellor and also at Indiana University. Graduated from Syracuse University, got his bachelor's and doctorate degrees from there, and a longtime practitioner and higher education leader. Secondly, we have Dr. Will Del Pilar. He's Senior Vice President of the Education Trust. He spearheads a lot of work to highlight inequities in education and increases access, success, and affordability for minoritized communities. He works for Pennsylvania's Department of Education and colleges and universities across the nation. He has a doctorate degree from Penn State, master's from Dominguez Hills, and bachelor's degree from Chapman University. We also have, last but not least, co-founder and leader of Black Student Success Week and racial equity thought leader, founder of the Equity Avengers, He doesn't need an introduction for many of you. He is the president and CEO of Compton College, got a doctorate degree from UCI and UC Santa Cruz, where he did his undergrad. Please give a virtual welcome, a round of applause to our panelists. We can bring them off the stage here. All right. So I'll start off with you, the assistant secretary here, to kick us off with this phenomenal panel. And I know you bring a lot of state and federal insights. Please share a little bit about your background and what brings you to the higher education space. What does your organization or your department institution currently do right now?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for including me here. As you mentioned, I've been in college for over 40 years, 10 years as a student, and over 36 years as faculty and administrator, chancellor of a couple of university campuses. So 30, 40 years ago, when I started in Indianapolis, my work, I noticed that there are two zip codes, one 20 minutes to my east, one 20 minutes to my north. And the huge difference, about 50% difference in the education attainment of these two regions, zip codes. But the life expectancy of these two zip codes differed by 17 years. And what was really telling is that the importance of higher education. Now, these people were on the east side, were left behind, not all students of color, not all Black, but they didn't have that education. So we have committed ourselves at Indiana University, my campus in Indianapolis, to educate people, as many as we can, to recruit, retain. We started with a strategic planning process, a diversity plan, bias training for all, hiring of faculty members and senior administrators. It's very important. We assigned books for everyone to read. So we did all of that. Climate survey was very important for us to have the pulse of our campus and our students. So we did all of that. In like last 6-7 years, I was the chancellor of that campus. We increased the percentage of students of color by about 20%, and meant from 20% to 40%, which is a huge growth in this period, but graduation rate as well. So that is my background, and I'm now honored to serve our country at the Department of Education in this role as Assistant Secretary for Post-Secondary Education, where we are trying to help institutions that are doing the right thing, institutions that are supporting students that we want to educate. We are providing support financially as well as regulations, HBCUs, HSI, a number of other institutions that we want to make sure that they are successful going forward. We are also looking at regulations. One of the projects that we are working on is debt forgiveness. We know the Supreme Court decision. We are now trying to look at the Higher Education Act and see how we could bring some relief to students that borrowed some money many, many years ago, and they've been paying off. Now they owe even more than what they borrowed. So those are some of the things that we are doing at the department. And again, as I said, I'm honored to serve our country in this role.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary. We definitely feel the impact of that. Drop in the chat if you've benefited from any of the loan forgiveness programs. I know some of you are jumping up, doing backwards flips on that. Dr. Curry, I'm gonna come to you. How do you engage this work, and how do you enter this work?
So I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to be on a panel. This is my first time on a panel at Black Student Success Week since the first year in 2020. Also, shout out to our Black and Male of Color Success Program at Compton College. They have a watch party, so I'll make sure they know I'm showing them out today because they're amazing in the work they do to support our students and also support themselves. I come to the space, my background started actually at UC Santa Cruz. I was a student leader there, and I was able to write policy under J. Michael Thompson, who's at the time was the Associate Vice Chancellor, and he gave me funding to support Black students, and the program was called Destination Higher Education. And the reason why I start there, because I've been doing this work since I was 19 years old, and really been focused in on Black student success, even with the work at UC Santa Cruz and also the work that I do now at Compton College. And what I've learned in this space, it starts with partnerships with your local K-12 districts and having real partnerships and relationships. But then also too, it goes back into your strategic planning for your organization and being able to understand what your priorities are. And I also think it's important as we talk about strategic planning, is that that's something that can't be done overnight, right? And we have to be thoughtful in our strategic planning as relates to Black student success and how they fold into the guided pathways work, how they fold into the outreach and support work that we provide for students, but really being strategic about that, but finding time and space to be able to do the work. And so I come in this space since I've been doing this since I was 19 years old, but also I've recognized over the years that you have to have individuals responsible for the work. You can't be saying, oh, it got to be a task force. You got to have somebody responsible. So at Compton College, Dr. Antonio Banks is responsible for Black and men of color success, and he runs the initiative. But it's also about how do you work with this work through the guided pathways model that is everyone's responsibility. So when I come into this space, I understand that doing work for Black student success is an institutional responsibility, and it doesn't fall just on one person. Everyone has to be behind this work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Dept, Pilar, give us their why. What's your why? How do you enter this work?
I came into this work because I am this work. I'm a low-income Latino student from Carson, California. And when I went to go talk to my school counselor about college options, he told me I didn't need to worry about that. That if I wanted to go to college, that I could enroll at the local community college. And so I didn't enroll in college post high school. I did what his expectation was of me, which was work. And I eventually found my own way back into higher education after almost 2 years of working full time. I kind of accidentally fell into college, and had it not been for a few folks who took interest in me, I don't think I would have made it through college. And so I do advocacy, I do research, I do policy work because I want to create the context that allows for Black and brown students, low-income students to thrive in these environments, not just have to find a way to survive in higher education institutions. And so I came to this work because I feel like I was denied opportunity. I wanted to create opportunity for other students who were like me and told that they didn't need to worry about it because they didn't see a future for us in higher ed.
Interesting. A lot of our students are by default, not by design. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna circle back with you to go backwards in this question. What is your immediate reaction to the ban on race-conscious practices, Dr. Dept, Pilar?
I wasn't shocked. I mean, I think that it's been under threat, and the parties that have been trying to dismantle affirmative action have been at it for a long time. These are the same people who are moving to disband DEI across our country to eliminate opportunities for Black and brown folks. And so I truthfully wasn't shocked. I will say that while I wasn't shocked, it is disappointing that we had so long to think about how we get admissions right, and we didn't do anything. We didn't make admissions more accessible for Black students. When we look at what is valued, even in holistic admissions, you can say whatever you want about holistic admissions, but when you use GPA, access to AP courses, if you SAT scores, when you use all of these factors that disadvantage Black and brown students in your holistic admissions process, then what you're going to end up with is what we actually got in higher education in California. Every UC school and every CSU is less Black today than they were 20 years ago. And so if we don't address college admissions, I think in a more holistic way, thinking about what are the things that we value in an admission system, what we're going to continue to see are institutions that as they become more selective, they become less Black.
Absolutely. Dr. Paydar, I'm coming to you. There have been historical systemic marginalizations of access for folks. And it is imperative as a system, the government, to wrong that right, to create systemic policies to equitize the opportunity for access. What was your reaction to when this happened?
Well, the Biden-Harris administration took swift action. I think it was important to us that colleges and universities understood that they should not overreact to the decision. I mean, as bad as it was, we don't agree with it. It's the law. We need to follow it, but we don't want institutions to overreact to it. So basically, very quickly, that news came out on June 29th. On July 26th, less than a month later, we brought about 100 leaders of universities and research agencies together in Washington, D.C., number of people from California to learn best practices, to make sure that we capture what are the kinds of things that institutions should do. Our Office for Civil Rights came up with documentation talking about race and school programming, and then in September we prepared and released a report, strategies to increase diversity and opportunity. You can Google that, strategy to increase diversity and opportunity, and there we are focusing on how to go about recruitment, how do you go about admission process, what are the kinds of things that you need to do in that area. It is important to note that we stand ready to support institutions and many of the things that were mentioned. We need to comply with the law, but nothing in that decision prohibits institutions from actively seeking to attain student body diversity, seeking the admission and graduation of diverse student bodies. You can reach out to certain anywhere you want, high schools, as long as you don't use race as a determining factor. And of course, one major item that is extremely important is financial aid. Money is important. Tuition has gone up significantly. Pell Grant has been almost constant. Thanks to this administration, it's gone up by $900, and we are requesting another $750 for the fiscal 2025. But there is this gap, and people have to borrow, people have difficulty going. So money is extremely important, and we are encouraging institutions to look into need-based aid. Of course, getting students to an institution is one part of the solution, but creating an opportunity for them, a belonging, a safe place for them to understand, for educating the faculty staff to make sure that they pay attention, to make sure students are successful once they get there, to increase the graduation rate. So those are some of the things that we are doing. We did ask the federal government for about $50 million appropriation for what we call Post-Secondary Student Success Grant. We are distributing that to institutions. We did it last year. We will be doing it again to support institutions that support students to be successful. Strategies there. So those are some of the areas that we are focused to help students and to help institutions.
Absolutely. Well, those are some productive steps there. Dr. Curry, I'm gonna come to you. You're one that's very unapologetically Black-centered. You don't need permission, and you've always worked around initiatives such as Prop 209 here. What are your thoughts and reactions to when this happened?
My initial thoughts, I wasn't surprised at all. I knew that it was going to happen that way because I just understand politics and where this country's headed. But I would also say that my experience with Prop 209 when I was in college as an undergraduate at UC Santa Cruz, my experience with SB1, SB2 for University of California as relates to banning emissions, use of race in emissions, and also for contractors. So I knew how to work in this environment. But I also see this as an opportunity for community colleges to really double down our efforts regards to our students and Black student success, really prepare them for four-year college and university so they're academically prepared, but also make sure we provide money to help support them when they transfer to a four-year college and university. But when we hear this conversation or involved in this conversation around admissions, I think some people forget that some of these elite institutions, our students, they're not looking at the rankings of these institutions. And I see a lot of these institutions worry about the USA Today rankings, their Forbes rankings based off their class. I'm worried about my students got to eat every day. I'm worried about where my students are going to be able to sleep at night. I'm worried about if they're going to get their financial aid check on time to make sure they have money in their pocket. I'm worried about the cost of books. So we're serving a different population that continues to get ignored because we're so focused on these elite institutions and their admissions policies and their financial aid and what they provide and what they don't provide. I think right now is the right time to recenter this country to really focus in on the students at need, and the students who are at need are community college students, and be unapologetic about that.
Absolutely, excellent point. We accept the top 100% of students who apply and enroll on our campuses. And so, with that being said, Dr. Pilar, you've been leading and researching a lot of advocacy works. What can other states, as Dr. Curry and Dr. Paydar mentioned, things haven't changed since the last 20, 30 years. What can other states learn from California navigating around some of these race-conscious practices?
I mean, to be like very truthful to you, I don't think we can learn anything from California. If anything, it's a blueprint on how to decrease access to Black students. I've shared the data. We publish it. I've done presentations on the UC and CSU. They have all become less accessible to Black students. And so even the institutions that were once, I think, models of access for Black students have decreased Black student access. And so I do think that we really need to look at other models. I dropped in the chat, but we need to be thinking about direct admissions. Like admit every student who is graduating from high school to college and let them opt out of college instead of making students jump through hoops to get into college. We need to make college free. We need to address universal access. We need to really, I think, address issues of helping students complete the FAFSA at the institutional level. And so I do think we need to think about creating pathways for universal access. A big part of it is community colleges. And I think that we need to streamline transfer because 52% of students lose credit in transferring from a 2 to a 4-year institution. And that's about the 4-year institutions really trying to drive a tuition-based model, having students retake classes that they already took. And so I do think we really need to address transfer in a holistic way because so many Black and brown students start their educational career at a community college. So I don't think there's a lot to be learned from California. We think we got a lot right, but we actually didn't. I don't believe we did when we look at the national data. We also need to push these institutions that say they serve California students to truly serve all of California students and not just some of California students. They should be serving an equitable number of Black and brown students as we look across and you look at the most selective institutions. I know they're not the most important. I went to Dominguez Hills. I went to Chapman University. And so I know those are places where I felt welcome. But we do have to create opportunity for students at least to have a fair shot into those institutions. The same way folks pay taxes, Black folks pay taxes too. Those state appropriations are they use state as tax dollars. If I'm a taxpayer in California, I deserve to have access to those institutions that they use my tax dollars to help fund. And so I don't think there's a ton to look at in California. We need to be looking other places to really get examples of what works.
Good point. Dr. Paydar, what's next at the federal level? You mentioned convening folks, you mentioned, the reports that were sent out. What should we expect next at the federal level?
Well, let me continue with what Will mentioned, transfers. Over half of students of color start in a 2-year sector. Now, so improving, as was mentioned, not everyone needs to go to 4-year master's and PhD, but if for those that want to go, we need to improve transfer part of it. So what are we doing about that? Well, in the fall, a few months ago, we brought a lot of people, over 200 individuals here by state. So 10 or 11 states together, the state executive officers, president of their community colleges, president of their 4-year colleges, and a number of others. So 10 or 11 per state came together, and we had a summit all day to look at policies that states have that would create obstacles or could help with the situation. And we talked about best practices. What are the institutions that are doing better job in transferring students? So we have compiled all of that, and we are going to be releasing that. So that's just one more area that we can help kind of bring people together and talk about how we could support institutions, make it easier for students to transfer so that they won't lose credit. They lose more than just credit. They lose hope. When they go from one college to another and they have to retake, most of them that have already taken, and issues there are. So that's some of the things that we are doing to help with the transfers, for example.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do a red robin to kind of almost finish this out here. So Dr. Curry, there's a lot of folks listening to this call, federal, state, nationwide, even international. As practitioners of the work, what can they do to support Black Student Success Week and these policies?
I think there's a lot we can do. One is we have to do a focus on the practitioners, right? I think leadership matters. I see a lot of times we have leaders who are in these positions who are not doing right by students. We need to make sure that we have leaders in the right positions to be able to support Black student success within our organizations. but we also have to hold the leaders accountable for it as well. So one, leadership matters, but also holding leaders accountable for this work. But then also too, at a policy level, we should be having policy conversations. So in California, we have to really fix the Cal Grant program to ensure that we're covering the total cost of tuition for our students. We have to make sure that colleges have money to support outreach and retention on our campuses of our students. And what does that look like? But holding the institutions accountable to utilize those dollars the right way. We also have to make sure existing programs to continue to get funded. So Emoja, Amend, and HBCU transfer, ensure that those projects continue to receive those funds, because when you have a budget crisis that we have now, our budget deficit, the first thing people are looking for is reductions, right? You can't tell a Black student that we're doing this today, but tomorrow we can't do that anymore because we don't have the budget. We lose all of our credibility, not only on our institution, but when they go out in their community and talk to their cousins, their brothers, their sisters, they're telling people like they had this, but they don't have this no more. So we have to be able to follow through on our commitments. But also, too, we need to look at legislation in California that support Black student success. I know there's another panel that's coming up talking about 1348, which is Bradford bill regards to seal of excellence, but really acknowledging colleges that are doing well for Black students and then holding them accountable for that as well. And then final piece of it, I think dual enrollment. I think dual enrollment has an opportunity to support Black students, but if you look at the data, how are we going to be intentional to ensure that those students are going to be enrolled in our programs? Is as ways to dual enrollment. I'm a firm believer in 12 and 4, recruiting students, all students for dual enrollment to ensure that you're able to reach out to those Black students, identifying with your K-12 districts who has a program for, like Common Unified School District has a program for Black students. They have a department. Work with that department to be able to identify Black students for dual enrollment, because we see a lot of students who are getting left out of dual enrollment because they just don't know. So we have to be more intentional regarding to our outreach, but more specifically on this topic, dual enrollment. And we just released this in the chat is our policy document, which I just went over with my comments.
Awesome, awesome. So we're gonna wrap this panel up. I mean, it's fire, but there's another panel coming right up. But I'm gonna let y'all leave with this. You know, there's a difference between optimism and hope. Optimism is kind of having your students submit that grade or that paper they didn't know they studied for the last second, 11:58, submit that thing for midnight. Hope is believing in something bigger than you. Having the conviction and faith that something will change. So what gives you all hope in this space? 30 seconds or less. I'll go to you, Dr. Paydar. What gives you hope?
Well, I think what gives me hope is that diversity is the strength of this country. There are forces against it, there are winds against it. I don't think those are sustainable. And I think what I see from some leaders, I think Dr. Curry mentioned that leadership is extremely important. You know, when one person goes on a diet, you cannot just observe it like once every other month. You've got to do it every day. If a leader of a university says, I'm committed to diversity, I'm committed to this, it's not sufficient to say that in a speech for commencement or a speech for convocation or addressing student body at a certain point. Every day they have to say that, and the boards of these institutions should hold them accountable. And I believe in this country and the fact that we want to go in the right direction and people will move in that direction. As slow as it is, we cannot give hope. We need to work on it, and everyone does it in their own way from their own angle.
Perfect. Dr. Pilar. Hope.
I mean, I think that there are policies that are being advanced that benefit Black students. Specifically, Dr. Paydar talked about student debt cancellation. We know that Black borrowers are most impacted by student debt, and so I love to see the actions of the department. We'd love to have seen broader base cancellation, because I do think the impact on Black borrowers is significant, but I think that that's one of the things that has given me hope. We need to continue to address the problem, though, by creating a federal-state partnership and making college tuition free. We need to double the Pell Grant. These are actions that I see that the administration has taken seriously, and we're on a road to doubling the Pell Grant. But if we can make college tuition free, if we can cancel student debt, if we can continue to address affordability by creating some type of federal-state partnership, I think that we can create this pathway to universal access that I mentioned previously.
Good point. Dr. Curry, bring us home. Hope.
What gives me hope is the people, right? In 2000, when we first started Black Student Success Week, we didn't know what it's going to be, what it's going to look like. Now, 5 years later, it's continuing to happen, but you have campuses doing events as it relates to Black student success. You have campuses have leads as it relates to Black student success. You have people buying T-shirts and having conversations. You see engagement from the Department of Education. You see engagement from external groups about Black student success. So what gives me hope is the people and leadership, because I've seen people over the last 5 years who are not in this space, who are in this space having conversations unapologetically about Black student success. That wasn't happening 5 years ago. And it's a coalition of the willing. So what gives me hope is the people and leadership. And what's critical as we move forward is that we continue to develop these leaders, right? We got to continue to provide information. We got to continue to provide professional development. We got to continue to support these leaders in these spaces who are being unapologetic and moving these institutions forward as it relates to Black student success.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you, Dr. Curry, Dr. Dept, Pilar, Dr. Paydar. We appreciate you all leveraging your expertise to support Black student success, irrespective of your roles and responsibilities, and sharing space with us. Giving them a virtual round of love. You see all the love going to y'all in the comments, in the chat. The folks that benefited from some of your direct policies and advocacy. With that being said, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Handy. Thank you again. And we have another phenomenal panel coming up. Dr. Handy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, woo, that was powerful. That was good. Let's give it up one more time for our panelists. Keep the comments coming, keep the emojis coming. I liked what Dr. Curry said. He said, we are serving a unique population that continues to be ignored. Well, I think it's time for all of us to get real and level up. Our second panel will go deeper into some of the campus and system level practices proven to increase Black student success and levers for moving more colleges along and increasing Black student success. Now, I'm proud to introduce some of our panelists today. The first panelist I'm going to introduce, you might have seen this brother in a boxing gym. You might have seen him recently on the Jennifer Hudson show. None other than the infamous Dr. Wood. He's a racial equity leader, currently the president of Sacramento State and a product of Sacramento State. Got his undergraduate and his master's degrees from there. Leads a life and career committed to Black student success and has opened up a really new initiative that I hope we get spend some time exploring, the Sac State Black Honors College. Big round of applause for Dr. Wood. My second guest I want to introduce is Dr. Perez. Dr. Perez is the executive in the CSU Chancellor's Office. Dr. Perez is committed to supporting all students with a passion for high-impact student services. She co-led The Village, a housing facility for students experiencing homelessness, and is a passionate advocate for basic needs. Has an extensive background with the California community colleges, have worked at both Miracosta and Cerritos, is a product of the CSU system with a BA from CSU San Marcos and an EDD from SDSU. Also, one of the co-authors and advocates for the Black Student Success Inventory. Please give it up for Dr. Perez. And our third panelist here today is Senator Bradford. Not sure if Senator Bradford is on, but just to give you a quick snippets of Senator Bradford's bio, Senator Bradford is the lead voice in the statewide reparations work, author of the Senate Bill 1348, which is to establish the Black Seal of Excellence for California community colleges and universities, an advocate for the DEI, racial equity, and criminal justice reform, is proud to have secured over $11 million, that's right, $11 million for Compton College and $35 million for the Watts Rising in recent years. Give it up for our three panelists today. Round of applause. Panelists, I'm just going to jump right into it. Can you just quick overview, share just quick background and what brings you into this space today? Dr. Wood, we'll start with you.
So first of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to be here as part of Black Student Success Week and to share this panel with a good friend and colleague, Dr. Perez. So we're here representing the California State University system, and I'm currently serving as president at Sacramento State. And my research throughout my entire career has focused on what does it take for Black students to learn, grow, develop, and be successful in environments that were not designed for them and oftentimes have systemic barriers that impede their success.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. Dr. Perez, a little bit about your background and kind of what brings you into the 5th year of Black Student Success Week with us on day 2.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to be here. I enjoyed the panel earlier today, and I feel motivated and energized. I'm Dilcie Perez. I have had the wonderful opportunity to work in both the community colleges and the CSU, and I'm excited about this time. It is a critical time and is an urgent time for us to continue to partner and to work together on behalf of student success, and that's what drives me every single day. So thank you, and I look forward to our discussion.
Appreciate that. And I just got the word that Senator Bradford is still running through the halls advocating for Black student success, but will be joining us shortly. So then let me hop into you, Dr. Wood. First, congratulations on being named the president of Sacramento State. That's huge. That is huge.
Appreciate that.
Already in a short time, brother, right? You've recently been recognized for its excellence in serving Black students. And you've opened up the Black Honors College, which is a unique initiative launched earlier this year. For those who aren't familiar, for those who haven't seen all the wonderful work that you've been implementing in such a short period of time, tell us a little bit about that program and what are you most excited about its implementation?
Yeah, well, definitely want to tell you about the Black Honors College, but let me step back a little bit because it'll, I think, help to parlay into what happens when Senator Bradford gets here. So part of what we're trying to do at Sacramento State is to demonstrate that we are a committed institution to serving Black and African American students. So, for example, you just heard some data that was presented that mentioned that enrollment is down. Well, enrollment is not down at Sacramento State. We're up 18% in terms of Black students over the last 10 years. San Diego State is up, Fullerton is up, San Marcos is up, Chico's up, Stanislaus is up. So it's certainly not across the board. But there are 2 different types of minority serving institutions in the country, right? So you have your federal designation for your ones that are mission-based minority serving institutions, right? So your mission-based ones are your HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, and your tribal colleges. So they have a mission and focus founding on serving Black and Native students. Separate from that, you have on the other side, enrollment-based institutions. So you have your ANAPESIs, right? Your Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institutions, where you have to have at least 10% of your students who identify as Asian or Pacific Islander. You have your Hispanic serving institution, right? You have to have at least 25% of your students who identify as Hispanic or Latinx. And then there's also a federal designation for what's called a PBI, a predominantly Black institution. And for that, you have to have not 10%, not 25%, but 40% of your students who have to identify as Black or who have to identify as part of the Black community. So if you put those 2 things together, and you're thinking about how do we serve Black students across the state of California, what that means is you can't become an HBCU, you can't become a predominantly Black institution because nobody's got 40%. So what that means is that nowhere in the entire state of California, beyond that, the Western United States, and even beyond that, the entire Midwestern United States too, no institution could be known for serving Black students. And so that's why Senator Bradford's bill is so important. And that's why we've been trying to follow suit with what Compton College did a few years ago. President Curry was here earlier. A couple of years ago, Compton College self-proclaimed themselves, we are a Black serving institution. There may not be a state level designation. There may not be a federal level designation. That don't matter because we're going to say that we're committed to doing this. And here at Sacramento State, we have followed suit. We are and have the highest population of Black and African American students in the entire California State University system. So out of all 23 campuses, out of all 23, no one serves more Black students than we do. And we're very proud of that. So then I have to say to ourselves, like, how do we then embody this idea, kind of thinking about what President Curry is doing with Compton College, while at the same time recognizing that there's no state level designation. So basically, we went to the city of Sacramento, the county of Sacramento, and most recently, the California Legislative Assembly, and have been designated with the commemorative resolution designating Sacramento State as a Black serving institution. So that is the groundwork and foundation for this entire conversation in my mind, because what Senator Bradford is doing is something that could possibly change not just California, but the entire Western and Midwestern United States. Imagine Black serving institutions being put into place with these institutions so we can go to our Black students and say the same thing that many of us already say right now to our HSI students, to our Latinx students, to our PETA students, that we are here to serve you. So from that, we created the Black Honors College. Honors College that's specifically designed to serve Black and African American students. We've got over 6,000 square feet of space that we set aside in the heart of our campus in our library. And if you think about what does a library represent, right? It represents knowledge. It represents the center of the academic enterprise of the institution. And so that's where we put this. Over 6,000 square feet of space. They have their own seminar room, their own office space. They have their own center for students. We've reassigned 8 different staff members. We have a dean of students, a director, their own therapists and counselors, their own academic advisors, their own outreach team, and 17 faculty members who are on release time, who have a demonstrated record of success in teaching and serving Black students. So their entire general education pathway is taught in the Black Honors College with faculty members who have adjusted their curriculum so that it's culturally relevant, that it's focused on Black history, life, culture, and contributions. There's no other place in the country where can you go and experience this kind of experience that we're putting together for our students. And if you're a transfer student, we've got MOUs that we're signing today, actually, with 15 different community colleges in the state of California, where they'll have guaranteed admission into our honors college, and they'll do a minor in leadership that's part of the honors college that also has a focus on Black history, life, and culture.
Okay. Hold on. You came fresh off of Jay Hudson's couch. Fired up, Dr. Wood. I see.
Hey, I'm fired up for the people.
So let me bring Dr. Curry into this conversation, and then Dr. Perez, we're going to get to you following that. In Senator Bradford's absence, I know you're very familiar with this Assembly Bill 1348, Dr. Curry. So I kind of want to talk about what Dr. Wood is talking about and what he's doing with the Black Honors College and pair that with this Assembly Bill. Help us understand who maybe, we're not following legislation. Maybe we're not really into the nuance of it. Dr. Curry, I know California is making some serious strides in closing racial equity gaps with college access and undoing decades of inequality. From my understanding, AB 1348 is a core policy coming out of reparations, and that work is happening at the state level. But what I think we all want to know is, tell us a little bit more about this policy and how is it helping colleges work towards being Black student serving and Black supporting institutions, similar to the way that Dr. Wood is doing with the Black Honors College at Sac State.
So I'd like to say thank you very much. I've been wanting to jump on this panel so bad, so that it happened. So I'm excited about that. They're going to drop in the chat the copy of the legislation of the bill. Last week, I spoke in front of the Senate Higher Education Committee regards to this bill in support of it. So basically what it means, if you have the current language, if you have 6% of your population is African-American or Black, you could qualify for the designation, but you also have to have 3 of the following: a student success program for Black and African-American students, or a robust African-American studies program, a co-curricular learning opportunities or campus affinity center for Black students, an outreach program and services that demonstrate a commitment to Black and African-American student success. You're able to receive a seal from the state of California for 5 academic years. But in order to keep the seal, you have to be able to meet 1 of 3 of the 4 criteria I just spoke on. I think this is a good bill, and I think it's a good start. But for me, it starts with the work that we've been doing nationally with Level Up, which they would drop in the chat, which is a national movement regards to Black learner success, but really looking at a Black serving institution designation that is different from the primarily Black serving institutions and also minority service institutions. Because in California, we all know that some of our institutions are not going to have 6. They might not have 9. They might have 10%, right? But also looking at it from a number perspective as well, to be able to say, you know what, if you have 1,500 Black students at your campus, you can be designated as a Black serving institution. But really trying, for me, is to look at this federal legislation to create the designation for Black serving. But in California, with the seal, is the start of the conversation. But we need a designation for Black serving institutions. But also, I want to say this too, it's not just about having a designation. And Dr. Woods and I have talked about this over and over again, is that you got to hold people accountable. A lot of people say, I want the designation, but still ain't going to do nothing, right? You'll say, oh, we're a Black serving institution, but we're not going to do nothing extra to support these students. We want to go after this extra money, but what are you going to do differently for those students while they're on your campus? Are you going to talk to those students when you see them on campus? Are you going to make sure they have food? Are you going to make sure they have housing? Are you going to make sure they have childcare? Ensuring that when you get additional funds as a Black serving institution, making sure that those students are being served. It's not just about a title, it's also about doing the work. And that to me is what I think is different from these other designations, is we have to hold people accountable.
Whew. Dr. Perez, you know they say save the best for last. Last year, the CSU released a timely and vital report and an inventory on how each of your 23 CSU campuses serve Black students. And, you know, we've been making strides over the last several years to improve supports for Black students. Can you share some lessons learned and goals outlined in that inventory? And if I may, kind of like they say in the Black church, can you make it plain? What can institutions do differently to effectively serve Black students?
Well, I have to tell you, these two are a tough act to follow, and they're giving you what I believe is the vision for where we're headed, not just in the CSU, but in community colleges in the state, which I think will ultimately impact the nation. And so I want to congratulate folks on their innovative thinking and the work that's happening to create the seal and Black serving institutions. I will tell you that many of you may know 2 years ago, the CSU wanted to acknowledge Juneteenth in a special way. And so our board decided that we would have a symposium that had over 700 people in attendance. And I have to tell you, I had been in the community colleges for the previous 5 years, and it was on day 3 that I came back to the Juneteenth symposium. And I tell you, I said, something has shifted in the CSU because I have never seen anything like this before. But what was most important in that Juneteenth symposium was the call to action that occurred of really essentially telling the CSU is that we have a problem that we must address. And so what we've alluded to is that we have 2 reports. One that came out last year in June 2023, that was the byproduct of a work group that created a strategic action plan so that the CSU would become a nationwide leader in Black excellence and student success. Now, I will share with this, everything that I've heard today is really accurate and true. And if you look at page 7, there is a funnel of Black students who are eligible to come to the CSU. And then really, as you've seen, as you've heard today, the number decreases significantly over time. That is a problem. The CSU understands that that is a problem. And on page 7, it says that as Black student enrollment and persistence continues to decline, the CSU is facing a potential future where Black students and Black excellence may be unrecognizable if action is not taken. And so our Chancellor, Dr. Garcia, and Chancellor Emerita Kester said, that is unacceptable to us. We have to do better and we will do more. And so what you will see in the first report that was issued in June 2023 are 13 recommendations of what we believe is needed across our system. And what you will see in the report, it says that we cannot do this individually. We have to do this collectively, and it will take all of us to do this work. Now, in these 13 recommendations, you will see some of them are exceptionally bold and they are serious. And what I will tell you is we did listening sessions across our system and listened to over 250 faculty, staff, and students. And what they had said to us is, I'm not interested in participating in your listening sessions if this is going to be a performative action and another report that sits on a shelf. And I will tell you, Dr. Wood and I were on that, and it was co-led and co-chaired by Dr. Thomas Parham from Dominguez Hills, Dr. Saul Jimenez Sandoval from Fresno, that we were all committed to this not being just another book on the shelf. And so what we did is conducted an inventory, and we asked each campus to reflect on what you know about your campus related to these 13 and tell us where you're at. And I have to tell you, what you will see in the report that was just released publicly today in this inventory is we have some work to do. So I'm going to give you very quickly some lessons that we learned from this. One is that we have to build a lifelong relationship with our students. Stop waiting till high school to prepare students to come to college. That is too late. We need to start, as many of you know, as early as possible with academic preparation and helping them. We had a student come and talk to us who is a Project Rebound student, 18 years, currently at Sac State. He said, there was none of your colleges in my school. What they taught me to do was to be a gang member, not to be a good student. He dropped out, went to prison, came back, and was a 4.0 student in community college and transferred to Sac State. And he said, I never knew I was a good student. And he is going to be graduating from Sac State this spring. So we're excited about that. But a lifelong relationship with students and their families. The other piece is that what we realize is that our institutions, our universities, are not currently designed for the students that we serve. And the reality is that we need to recognize that the way in which higher education was structured in this country, it was not for the students we serve, we know, but it was intended to weed students out and to not, and to really, at the base of it is academic elitism, where we believe that some students are worthy of a degree while others are not. And so we are really spending time looking at our institutions, understanding that we are going to have to change our infrastructure and the way in which we approach students to support them. The other thing is we need to stop using a one-size-fits-all approach for students. All Black students are not the same. They do not have the same walk in life. And what we need to do is have our institutions be more agile, more responsive and in tune to individual student needs and provide support in the way that a student needs as they are walking through their educational journey. And lastly, Dr. Parham says this comment, and it is so, so good, and this is a huge learning for us, is that at the end of the day, students are not flunking out of cross-cultural centers. They are not flunking out of multicultural centers or student affairs or student life programs. They are flunking out of the classroom. And we have a responsibility to address the student experience in the classroom to ensure that some of the behaviors, not all, this is not all, but some of our faculty are really pushing students out because it is creating a chilly, icy environment where students do not feel like they matter and belong, and they are not invested in the work. And so I will tell you at the end of that, as we switch, my recommendation, our work, what we're doing, what Dr. Wood is doing is impressive. The work he's doing, you can't tell me that's not going to spread through the CSU as other presidents and other universities see what he's doing. We want to emulate the programs that are working and continue to emphasize them and scale them across our system. And I will tell you that the CSU is not trying to be performative. We are serious about this work, and you will see action.
Dr. Perez, you just gave us some stuff to chew on, some stuff to think about. I know we're getting close to the end, but I got a few more questions, and I want to go back to Dr. Wood. Dr. Wood, you've been doing this work for a while. You've been a champion for higher education and Black student success. As co-director of the California Community College Equity Assessment Lab, you also have a firsthand knowledge of what it means to practice racial equity, both in the classroom and across college campuses. Dr. Perez kind of outlined some things, but I want to hear from you. Of all the practices you've seen in action, for our practitioners right now who are listening, who are tapping in, what is the most important thing they should keep in mind when determining how to best to serve Black students?
Oh man, I mean, that literally could be its own conversation, own class in terms of what it could be. I'm gonna give you a few quick things. One, I think you have to have a true commitment from leadership, a true commitment, because a lot of leaders, from my perspective, are very performative. They want to say that they care about Black student success. They want to release a statement after an incident has happened on their campus, but they don't actually want to do the hard work of creating a better conditions for these people who are actually on the ground. And so that's one of the reasons I'm proud that we have a new chancellor who is really committed to Black student success, and our outgoing chancellor was also. So with Dr. Garcia in place, I feel like we've got some great leadership. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Perez. Like, if you think about like what our system is doing on Black student success, none of that existed before Dr. Perez was in the room, right? So all the things that we're seeing right now are a function of true committed leadership. And so that's one of the things that you have to have. Second thing you have to have, I think that you got to create your own systems. So, you know, many of you have heard the quote from W. Edward Deming and Paul Batalden: every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. So if we look at our institutions, our 50 to 150 year history across the CSU, the UC, the community colleges has routinely shown that our systems are not designed for Black students. So what we continue to try to do, though, is we try to fit Black students into systems that don't want them, were never designed for them, and oftentimes resent their actual presence. And so what I believe you do is you create your own system. That's what we're doing with the Black Honors College. We're not going to try to create something at Sacramento State that's embedded into all the new system, into all the old systems. We're creating a totally new infrastructure with its own space, its own staffing, its own budget, its own, all of that, so that it can be a standalone enterprise, so that it doesn't get into some of the same issues that the rest of our campus has. I think the third thing you got to do, and this is the last one I'll say, is you got to create the Underground Railroad. You have to think about that as a concept that goes across all areas. So if you're a faculty member in the classroom, right, the Underground Railroad is, you know, your person in financial aid, you know, your person in counseling, you know, your person in academic advising, and you don't just send a Black student to a service and say, go to advising or go to financial aid. You bring them to a person who you know will care about them and care about their success and not do any further damage to them. But you can also think about that on the institutional level. Like, that's what we're doing with the Black Honors College. We're creating a pathway through Sacramento State for Black students where they're going to be with faculty members, with staff members, with people who care about them and care about their success. And the third thing that, the next thing that we're doing that's related to that is we're also looking about how we enroll students in classes. So right now we do batch enrollment of classes, students into their classes for their first year, meaning you come to Sacramento State, your first year classes, they're actually predetermined for you so that we know you can get your classes so you can graduate on time. But then we've had this practice, and one of the things I've been pushing folks on is, but have we ever equitized that practice? Just putting up student and saying, hey, you're bachelored into this class. How do we know that that's a faculty member who cares about the student success? Have we looked at their D's, F's, and W rates, and are we just bacheloring them into any class to a faculty member who's averaged 80% DFW rate over the last 5 years? Or are we putting them into classes with faculty members who we know have a demonstrated record of success in serving them? And that's for the students who aren't part of our honors college. That's the experience that they're going to be going through this fall. So no matter what, whether it's part of the honors college or whether through our new batch enrollment strategy that we're doing, Sacramento State is creating an underground railroad to make sure that Black students will succeed and thrive and be in an environment where they experience dignity.
I know we're past our 1 o'clock mark, but this conversation is so engaging that we can't stop it prematurely. So closing remarks. This is a two-for Dr. Curry and Dr. Perez. Come to you first, Dr. Perez, and then Dr. Curry close us out. Dr. Perez, what advice would you give our students who are listening about how they can make it through our system with all of these race-conscious bans and admission bans happening? And then Dr. Curry, for you, the question is, what message would you want to get out there for our allies, our co-conspirators that are watching right now, that are tapping into Black Student Success Week? What can they do to help uplift Black student success? Dr. Perez?
You know, I think for our students, and we all have students who come, and our institutions are intimidating. They are bureaucratic. They are difficult to navigate. And I love the notion that Dr. Wood talks about an underground railroad, that I actually would say to students, you have to get connected. Get connected. And the reality is call us on our stuff. I would say to you, if somebody at one of the institutions or the universities or the community colleges does not respond to you, I bet you could reach out to any of these 4 people on this panel, and we will get connected to the person to make sure you get what you need. And so I would say, take away the ego and the pride. This is about changing the lives of our African-American and Black families across the state and even in the nation. I say get connected and never, 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 never quit.
Thank you. Dr. Curry, just to reiterate, what advice, what comments would you want to give our allies, our co-conspirators out there? How can they support hand in hand and be lock in step with us as we work for Black student success?
I wrote an article a couple of years ago in the LA Sentinel about being on the sidelines, right? I think it's important that we have all of our allies and people doing this work. We got to all be in the game working together. Don't tell me you support this work, but you're going to be on the sidelines and just cheering us on. Either you're on the field or you're not. And so we need more people in this work together, supporting Black student success. I don't need nobody cheering for me on the sideline. I need people involved in the game doing the work, because our students deserve more. And to go back to your previous question regards to students, I think about my students all the time. Whenever I'm on campus and we're talking to students, I want to understand their needs. I want to understand how we can support them. I want to ask those questions like, do you need this? Do you need that? And try to figure out some of those solutions. And we have to be able to do that. We have to listen to our students. We can no longer think we know everything. We have to be involved in the game and be in the game, not on the sideline, but listen to our students. But then also, too, follow through on what we say we're going to do. A lot of times we say, oh, we're going to do this, do that. And the students are like, oh, they're not going to do it. Because your past practice was, you said it, nothing happened. Follow through on what you say you're going to do. So one, we need everyone in the game, not on the sideline. We don't need cheerleaders. We need people doing the work. Two is that we need to make sure that we listen to our students and follow through. Three is follow through on what we say we're going to do for our students. If we can do those three things as a team, we can start to see things change as within our California community colleges.
Dr. Wood, Dr. Perez, Dr. Curry, thank you. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. Both panels were phenomenal. I want to thank all our panelists today. Let's take a moment, please, as you're still here. Let's shout out our panelists. I think we're going to drop their social handles in the chat if you want to continue with the conversation, but really want to express my heartfelt appreciation for our esteemed speakers today. Both panelists were fire, valuable insights, and I feel enriched and feel like I have a better understanding of how I can take action and want to just get that action out to my fellow colleagues and practitioners. Well, that's about a wrap for day 2. Want to highlight our sketch effects. If you missed anything happening from today or yesterday's webinar, we like to use the power of live sketching, where you get key points and insightful quotes and memorable moments from the webinar. So we'll make sure that we get that out to you in real time. Also just want to say, if you're not aware, as we continue with our Black Student Success Week, we want to stand in solidarity with the 2024 CCC LGBTQ+ Summit. It's an embodiment of our commitment to amplifying voices and championing liberation. We also want to spotlight the spirit of our Black, queer, and trans siblings who have long been torchbearers in the ongoing struggle for the LGBTQ+ liberation. So that event's happening at the same time. I encourage you, mark your calendars, join the summit virtually this week, tomorrow, and the next day from 9 to 1. Special thank you to our sponsors. Man, your generous support is what's making this event possible. Thank you for your commitment to Black Student Success Week. We truly appreciate your grateful partnership in this work. Before we conclude, I just want to remind you, if you hadn't had an opportunity, go grab some of your swag, right? Exclusive merchandise is still available from 3 Kings Clothing Boutique. It's important that you understand, everybody, that the vendor that we're using for Black Student Success Week is a Black-owned vendor. The proceeds from Black Student Success Week merch goes directly to our student speakers. So we're creating an ecosystem that's for us and by us. So please go run those numbers up, go get your swag, and you tag us in the swag. Stay connected on social media to continue the conversation. Stay updated on current events, on resources and opportunities. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we have a YouTube page at CA Black Students. Exclusive content posted daily. Are you watching from one of our watch parties? Did you register before for the Black Student Success webinars? Because if so, you can enter $20. You get entered for a $20 Uber Eats voucher. So check your email for that. Let us know. Post your vouchers if you got the vouchers, because we want to be able to shout you out. Shout out Compton College. I know you had over 30 students yesterday watching Black Student Success Week. Where would I be if I didn't shout out my own college? Shout out DVC. I know that there were students in the Puma Center watching, so salute to you. I see you. Scan that QR code. We have to get data. We have to continue to show the work and show the different ways in which we're engaging with the statewide community. So please scan that code and let us know if you're having a watch party. Stick around. It's happening right now is today's after party, where the conversation continues in a more relaxed atmosphere. That's happening right now. Again, you can scan that QR code for that. And don't miss the student hour as well. Dedicated space for students to connect, to share, and experience the journey with each other. That is organized by the Chancellor's Office, I Can campaign, Aaron Daly, Monday through Thursday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Today's topic is Community College Day. And so the audience is high school students, prospective students, and there's going to be conversations about our dual enrollment processes and initiatives, transfer programs, and financial aid supports. So join in on that. Well, once again, Thank you all for being a part of today's webinar. Come back and visit us for day 3, Empowering Black Excellence, Policies, Workforce Development, and Apprenticeships for College to Career Success. We're happy that you're here. Thank you for joining us and appreciate. And once again, thank you for all our panelists. Thank you for all the work, and thank you to the planning committee for everything that you've done to make this a successful week. Peace.